sometimes the messages that resonate or the experiences that resonate the most are the unexpected.
Business is messy and unpredictable.
Sometimes lonely.
So lonely.
So lonely.
And inspiration can often come from really weird places.
We pick up where the bullet point blogs and the highlight reels leave off.
We start with the stories.
So here's my story. I have a bit of I've been trying to spend more time on LinkedIn because I feel like that's an important place for us to be reaching people on, for the podcast and for other things. But I have kind of a love-hate relationship with it, most especially the inbox messaging thing, which I have come to almost just ignore because so many spammy emails. And it's funny. So my story starts, the setting for the story was 2 or 3 days ago. I was going through them, just trying to clear them out, make sure there wasn't something in there that was important. And I actually had this thought, I wish I was, part of me a tiny bit wishes I was the kind of person who wasn't concerned about the human on the other side of the story that would be if I collected all these messages that have been sent to me and just mock them on this on this show. Because I was so irritated where, somebody connects with you and then literally sends you an email, a message like, let me help you with this. And they were so specific, like, I'm sure you need a buy-sell agreement. I'm like, first of all, you're making 17 assumptions and what a waste of your time and don't waste my time. And one just said, hey, how are you? And I was like, what? Who answers that? I don't even know you. And why would I invest time in answering that question authentically? And so, anyway, so I was just irritated, so going through deleting these messages. And then I click on one from a gentleman named Larry Wheeler. And now, as you can see, I am smiling. Larry Wheeler is a long-term listener to this show. And he said, I've been listening for a while. I finally reached out. And so I was like, oh, this makes my day. I was irritated. And I said, how did you find the show? So he actually started listening. He was searching for business podcasts, started listening when we just had a couple episodes out. So he's been around since the beginning, doesn't do much on Facebook. So he hasn't joined the group or whatever, but he's been out there, listens to most of our shows, whatever. And I've been riding a high ever since getting his message, because it's that, it's the power of one little piece of breadcrumb that tells you that you're doing something right. And it solidified something that I've been really struggling with a different situation with a client that I had last year, trying to articulate something to her that I really struggled to articulate. These will all come together into a point here in a second. I recognize that it feels like I'm rambling here. So there was some feedback from her that I've been trying to give around the importance of something in the realm of praise, but that didn't feel right. Every way I tried to form it, it sounded like, oh, you need to tell people, you need to praise people and tell them they're doing a good job, or that you don't want constructive, air quotes, negative feedback. When in fact, it's because with her and Larry's message just clicked it for me. In the absence of some kind of that part was good. If you only ever get dissatisfaction, and it was so hard to give her this feedback because all of the dissatisfaction that she expressed with the work that I was doing with her team was valid. I want her to say, nope, that's not right. Nope, that's not right. No, you didn't have this information, so you couldn't have known, but here. It wasn't, don't give me that. But every way I tried to express it sounded like, but also give me a hug every now and then. And it just felt, I was like, that's not it. What is it? And it hit me when I got the message from Larry. If you don't, it's like playing that game, warmer, colder, hotter, colder, hotter. If you only ever get colder, and you never get warmer, you can't get to the spot. You're just only ever moving away from, and you don't have any way to move towards what works. And so there you have it.
So I wrote down a couple of things. It was really funny because when you started out and you were talking about the messages you get on LinkedIn with which you get frustrated, I wrote down the word "hey" because Joe Natoli, our friend of the show, Joe Natoli posted something on Facebook because he has a big community of UX, user experience, whatever. And he says, message to the UX community. Don't ever think of just messaging me, hey. Right. I'm never going to respond to hey. Right. That was like your hey, how are you thing.
Yeah, like how are you? I'm like, that's an involved, like either I give you a I'm good. You like, I'm not going to have that kind of conversation with a stranger. Right. And if you're asking and I don't think you're asking authentically anyway. Like, do you really want to know how I am? Like,
so there are 3 notes, only one of which is actually relevant. So I'll go through the other 2 first. So the first one was hey from Joe Natoli's post. The second one was, you were talking about, the irrelevant and all that stuff. I was told the other week that we have a 1-star rating. I believe it's on Yelp, the law firm, because we only have 1 review in the law firm, and it was about our food service.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So we have this 1 star. So of course, Shelly and Allie, they're just going bananas because we have this on social media. We have this 1-star review of the law firm. It has nothing to do. It has to do with food service, but you can't get it off. So they're very upset at the 1-star review. But anyway, what I did want to mention was when you're talking about the colder and colder and warmer, this is a phenomenon that I come to lately, which you can spare me the criticism that I've been practicing law for 31 years and I've come to this lately. But I found that when I write contracts for people, and I write pretty complicated contracts sometimes on very involved things, I found that if I throw in a provision that is completely in the best interest of the other side, that the other side will see is more likely to see the entire contract as fair.
Yeah. No,
because and I don't mean that to be deceptive. I just mean that it gets the conversation off to much better point. So, for example, I was drawing up a contract, and this was a relatively simple one for somebody who does a lot of developmental edits and ghostwriting and content development for people. And she's pretty high profile, works with a lot of high profile people who are writing what they have good reason to believe might be the next New York Times bestseller. So they're very concerned about one thing more than money, and that is their content, their intellectual property. And I found that if I put in the contract just a small 2-line provision that says, you own your content, period. Nothing in our relationship is going to result in our having any right, title, ownership claim, or whatever to your content. And that's it. I don't say, but you should know that you owe us or whatever. I just say that. And I have found
it's just something that says you're safe with me. Like,
yes. So I have found anecdotally and also through my direct experience that by including certain things solely from the other person's point of view, especially when it costs us nothing, because we would never have any claim in that example to content or whatever,
right?
That it changes the lens through which the entire exercise is viewed. Oh, it's fair. Oh, you're actually looking out for me. And so I was thinking about that when you said you just need that one nugget. And for you, you're talking about Larry's interaction with you in a desert of just
and
mediocre and awful.
Yeah, and I left out. It was two swim lanes of why it was great. One, it was in an inbox of otherwise just nonsense. Like part of me was tempted to just be like delete. I'm glad I didn't. But I actually left out another important detail. I had also, and I'm sure you have this too, I do this with all the projects. Like I've been feeling lately like I'm doing a few too many things. Yeah. And I've been trying to get a little bit more like, where am I really going to invest my time and energy? And every now and then, I love doing this podcast, but there's that tiny part of me who's like, because it's not easy to hear back from people. I can look at the stats and see that there's 2,000 plus people in theory. I mean, there are 2,000 downloads or 2,500 downloads a week or whatever, but I don't hear from those humans. So there's that tiny part of you who's like, is it a computer in a data field somewhere in Uzbekistan? Or is it like an actual human? And when we don't hear back from them, there's a tiny part of me who's like, is this like, I love it, but is it more just like a fun hobby versus like something that I should be investing in? Is it a vanity project, or is this something that I really want to double down on? And I'm always asking myself those questions. And at that point, I was actually having sort of a blah-tastic day anyway. So everything seems sort of pointless when I'm feeling that way. And then I get this one little message from one person who's like, I've been listening since the beginning. And honestly, when I said I'm riding a high, like you couldn't rip this podcast out of my, like, all of a sudden I was like, dun, 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 this is totally something I want to do. Like, which I never did my want to do it, but just that tiny little bit of feedback that says like, hey, you're on not even you're on the right track, but there is some value here, like some, so.
No, I think it's incredibly important, but I think it's also important not to conflate it with a formulaic response of, hey, I'm going to call in this employee and I'm going to give the sandwich. I'm going to give a compliment, and then I'll give the criticism, and then I'll give another compliment, because when it becomes formulaic, it becomes white noise, and it becomes worse than that. It becomes patronizing to me. Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, I can't stand the sandwich. It almost, it really does not sit well. And if anyone's not familiar with the sandwich, it's like good thing, bad thing, good thing, right? Like you're doing great. Yeah.
There's a name for it. I don't know what the name
something
is,
sandwich. I don't know. I think that's terrible. And it's not to say like, right. It's not the formulaic of like, oh, if you're going to give constructive feedback, also do this. I just think you know what, it actually ties back to, I think it's Gottman. It's some marriage relationship person. I think it's John Gottman's work about like the 5-to-1 ratio, just that there has to be these like positive interactions in with constructive feedback interactions and again, it can't be formulaic, but I think of it as if you like notice the good thing, mention the good thing. Like for me, it really clicked into place with that warmer, colder. Like if you're wanting to lead people towards where you want them to go, you have to be giving them some of the like warmer. And for me, that really takes it out of the context that I was really struggling with how it sounded because I don't need you to, it's not like I need a pat on the head. It's not that like, oh, make sure I feel loved and appreciated. It's not even that. It's just like, I need some kind of signal about what is working, what you do appreciate, what does have value, in addition to, not instead of, what you don't like or what you feel like is the wrong track. And when that concept of like warmer, colder clicked into place in my head, I'm like, that's it. You need some kind of signal to navigate towards, not just away from, because away from can lead you anywhere, like not necessarily towards what you actually want from people.
Right. And I just see the value in that because it also helps you set your guideposts, manage expectations, and have actual conversations with people that matter. But that's the content, the warmer, the colder, and that's the content, which is really important. The other part of it, though, is the timing or the context, meaning that I think Larry's message resonated with you more because you were in a field of delete, delete. And then you came across this message that actually mattered to you. And I've learned that, and I've seen that sometimes the messages that resonate or the experiences that resonate the most are the unexpected, so that, if I give somebody a gift around the holidays, I'm sure it's appreciated, but it's a gift around the holidays. Yeah. They're expecting this gift. But if I give them something and it's just a little thing, it could be what in our house was just a stocking stuffer, but it's on February 17th.
Right.
it's much more appreciated. I was talking to Shelley the other day about the fact that when our kids were little, our pediatrician had this habit. If we brought one of the kids in because they spiked a fever or they did something which kids tend to do as purely recreational activities, he would call like 7 o'clock in the evening, just say, hey, or maybe even the next day, hey, I just wanted to check in. How's David doing? How's Alex doing? I knew you were worried. Just want to know if you had any questions. Those calls took about 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yep.
And I would lie down in traffic for our pediatrician because, I know there are a lot of great doctors out there. There are a lot of great pediatricians. So I assumed that, for his ability, and I really respected his ability, I could probably find somebody who had roughly the same ability, who wouldn't kill my kid, right? But it was that 2 minute and 30 second unexpected call.
Yeah.
That made me think, nope, this is the guy that we're sticking with until they turn 18.
Yep. I hear you. I think just finding, and it's funny, as you were saying that, all these things come back. You have to layer in the authenticity of it, or what you were just saying about it can't be prescriptive. It can't be, I won't say one of the biggest mistakes we made, but one of the most hysterical and mocked going forward things we tried to do as we were growing at the architecture firm. We recognized that when we were 8 or 10 or 12 people, everybody knew everybody extremely well. And so it was very easy to keep a bead on who's happy, who's discouraged, who needs more of this or less of this or whatever. And as we started to grow, that was harder. And so we, good intentions, we were trying to forge connections in places where people weren't getting to know each other. So we decided that the principals, there were 4 of them at the time, would would each month or whatever it was, I don't remember how the structure was, that they would take somebody out to lunch and to get to know them or whatever. It seemed like such a good thing, but somehow it caught on, the pattern of it caught on where there was a day where everyone was out to lunch with the principal. And so people realized that it was a structure, a construct. And so they started mockingly calling them the love-ins, or because it was forced, because it took away that sense of spontaneity. It wasn't the principal had just taken an interest in you. It's oh, today I have, Jody's on my list today, so I'm taking her to lunch. And so it lost that authenticity. And we very quickly realized it was actually having the opposite effect of what we wanted. So we stopped it immediately. But if somebody hears that and they're oh, okay, I'm going to go, do X, Y, Z. It's well, maybe, but you have to make sure it still feels authentic. It can have a structure, but.
Yeah, well, it kind of reminds me that the lunches remind me of, as you know, so just to set context, when I went to law school, when I was in first year law school, my mother was in second and my sister was in third, the same law school. So. Oh,
I did not know that.
You did not know that?
Sometimes I feel like we're one of those old couples where I've heard all your stories, and then every now and then you throw down one that I've never heard, and I'm oh my God, I've never heard that story.
Well,
go ahead.
So next episode I'll begin a sentence with, when I was in the Coast Guard. Anyway, so. So my mom was in second. She had been an assistant provost at University of Maryland. She was a PhD in English, but she decided to go to law school. So she was in law school a year ahead of me, and she then got a job at one of the large law firms downtown. And they had decided that in order to boost camaraderie, every one of the associates would participate in the lawyers' softball league. Now, my mother wore a suit and heels to swimming barbecues, to poolside barbecues. So she had said, look, I'm not going to go to this.
This ain't happening.
and they were really upset. The partners were really upset. So they said, you have to go. You don't have to play, but you have to go. My mother would go and sit on the bleachers in her pearls. With, I'm sure they were her casual heels, but still, heels. And the joke around our house, she called it mandatory fun.
Yeah.
And a lot of the associates there did too, because there were some gung-ho people who loved softball and loved all this stuff, but it was this one-size-fits-all camaraderie exercise that I believe did more harm than good for the organization and for everything they were trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, so I love that. So the one interesting thing that Larry shared, we're jumping all over the place here, but that's okay. He referred to us, I know. He referred to us as a business philosophy podcast, which I thought I really liked, actually. I'm like, oh, okay, I like that. We'll stick that in there. So as a quick side note, I would just invite anyone listening because you can hear how much we appreciate it, to reach out. If you don't want to join the Facebook group, that's fine. If you want to send either one of us an email or connect with us on LinkedIn or anything like that, I guarantee you we will be all sorts of giddy about it. So
no, that's true. But if I do take issue, you said if they don't want to join the Facebook group, that's fine. It's not fine.
It's not fine. It's not fine. Well, I guess I could go back and say fine, like a different kind of fine.
Okay,
fine. Don't join the Facebook group. Whatever. So that's the side note. But I think that it's a thing that I've been thinking. This thought that popped into my head ever since it started a couple of days ago. I've actually been really focusing on it with my kids too, and is making sure that I am giving some of those like warmer, instead of just because we're all here in the house, and so there's so many more dishes than there's ever been in this house because we're here all the time generating dishes, and I'm like going to claw someone's eyes out if they, with certain issues with the dishes that have just been driving me bonkers. And we have it all split up with chores, and it's still just becoming like the bane of my existence. And so I've just been experimenting with, instead of only being like, oh my God, can you not like, just please do blah, 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 blah. I've been adding in a little bit extra of the like, oh, thanks for like, I love that you did that. Thanks for doing that. A little bit of the warmer. And it's really, and it's not like I don't praise them. They actually hate praise. This has been the interesting thing and why I wanted to tell you about it. Both of my kids are like you in that they hate compliments.
Yeah. Probably
for the same reason, because apparently your father was very effusive with them, and I, by nature, tend to be, and they hate it. So compliments aren't good. But this like warmer, like, I appreciate that you did that. Thanks for doing that. Oh, that was super helpful. That I actually, it's different, and it actually is working. So that distinction between praise, I'm making air quotes, and whatever warmer. No,
there's a huge distinction, because as you know, I really do. I find compliments very cringy.
Mm-hmm. Which you realize just makes me want to, subject you to them all the more. But go ahead.
I really don't. It makes me very uncomfortable. The compliments make me very uncomfortable. But I do recognize, if somebody recognizes the effort that I tried to do this or that I tried to do that, or let me know, hey, it was great, that was really appreciated, I really appreciate it when you did that, I can deal with that. I like that, because it does tell me, well, all right, well, that's one of the keys to making this person happy or fulfilled or make them feel seen or heard. And it makes me a better leader if I find the keys to people, that this is not manipulative in a way, but just that,
that it has value.
That I did something that had value for them, and that's great. So yeah, there is a difference between the compliments and letting somebody know that you noticed it, because then it would allow me to be better at what I care about.
So maybe this actually is really helpful. Maybe that is the distinction, because I think what's different about those and why they feel differently to you, I'm guessing, so you can let me know if this is it puts the focus, like it is positive feedback, compliments and this warmer thing we're talking about are both positive feedback, but the warmer category is about the action or the activity, the focus is there, versus like, you are fantastic. It's like absolutely. That thing you did, I appreciate, versus I appreciate you. And it reminds me of something my mom said when I was little was, if you, when you meet a kid, instead of like looking them in the eye and being like, hi, how are you? And like, they'll just dissolve, like talk about their shoes or something like that. And then they'll be like, oh yeah, these, I can run faster. They're super green or whatever. And that way it's not like this burningly searing spotlight on yourself.
Right. No, and I think it's constructive. So like I mentioned, I think when we were talking before we started recording, that I gave a webinar yesterday. And if somebody says to me, you were great, I just don't like it. It makes me cringe. But when somebody says, I really liked it when you did this.
Or that was really helpful.
Say, oh, okay. Well, then I can build that into my repertoire and make sure, that really landed. I can do this better. And so that's the big difference for me.
Warmer.
So that's our story.
But the discussion doesn't have to end here.
No, it does not.
In fact, we don't want it to.
No, we don't.
That is why we actually have our private Facebook group,
which we started to make sure that we could get your comments, your rants, your thoughts,
your stories. You can find links to that group as well as show notes and links to subscribe via email and how to find us just about anywhere you can possibly find podcasts at sohere'smystory.com.
And you can also find us on Facebook and Twitter at SHMS Podcast.
And since we know it takes a village.
Yes, it does.
We'd like to thank our village, our super talented, incredibly patient team.
And occasionally snarky team.
Yeah, but in the best of ways.
In the best of ways.
Snarky.
Yes.
Good mockery.
So a huge shout out to the people who actually help us produce our show. First, our sound engineer, Tom Hansen.
Thanks to Christy Schmier for our brilliant show notes and all the other fantastic writing she does for us.
And to Taylor Mathauer for doing just a little bit of everything.
Including wrangling us.
Which
is no small feat.
No, it's not.
This is Jody Hume.
And I'm Elliot Wagenheim.
And you've been listening to So Here's My Story.